Welcome to Planet People, a podcast that aims to inspire curiosity and cultivate a deeper connection with the natural world.
We are thrilled to be sharing stories with you that highlight the beauty and importance of protecting our planet's wildlife.
Be sure to follow us on social media and your favorite podcast streaming platform so that you never miss an episode.
Hello, Planet People. Hello, Natalie. Hello, Cindy and Colin Barrows. We are here with a bonus episode, and this is exactly why we are posting, every 2 weeks so that we can use this extra week for any sort of updates, current events that we might have, and as you know, bonus episodes like we posted 2 weeks ago. So we heard all about Chuckwalla National Monument and the designation of Chuckwalla National Monument with Cindy Barrows last week. And we're joined with Colin, her husband, and co-founder of CactusToCloud. And you will hear his episode all about lizards next week. So get excited about that. But we have sort of an unfortunate update, but one that is extremely relevant and I think just goes to the Desert Defender name that we've kind of coined this as.
While it's a bit of a unfortunate, daunting, whatever it might be, it's still that we're striving towards these protections and defending the desert, which is definitely a theme for this season, for this episode, and for the next few episodes as we dive into the desert ecology of Chuckwalla and why it's so important to continue to protect it. And we are joined by the Barrows today. Welcome back to the show, guys. Why don't you give us a quick little update about what is going on with Chuckwalla National Monument and the steps you're taking to continue to defend it?
Yeah, happy to do that. Since we last spoke to record back in the spring, there's been a lawsuit filed against Chuckwalla National Monument by some private individuals and special interest groups. There's a guy with a mining claim in Michigan, a special interest group in Colorado, and the law firm is based in Texas. So, folks from outside of the Chuckwalla area. And have filed this suit against the Department of Interior, which is the part of the government that manages Chuckwalla National Monument as a national monument and, ensures that the protections that come with a national monument, are being enforced. And the suit, would aim to undo all of that and say, no more national monument, no more protections.
So there's the Michigan group and then there's the Colorado group. And why do they want...
There's a Michigan guide person, and then there's a group called the Blue Ribbon Coalition in Colorado.
Why do they have interest in Chuckwalla? And why do they want the designation removed?
Well, I don't want to put myself in their shoes.
Are they looking to... You said it was a mining group, so they're...
He has a mining claim in the national monument. So what I can say about that is that in the designation and the proclamation that establishes Chuckwalla, there are some language in there that says that any kind of existing claims like that, there are some existing mining claims within the boundaries of the designation of Chuckwalla. There's private land within the designation of Chuckwalla.
What would they be mining for?
Claims. Well, so in the desert, and especially in this part of the desert, there's been, it's California, right? So everybody's looking for gold.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah. Now, whether there is any gold there to be mined, that's a separate question, right? Or so there's a group of mountains, a mountain range within Chuckwalla National Monument called the Orocopia Mountains. In Spanish, it'd be gold, basically, or lots of gold, cup of gold.
Yeah, cup of gold, yeah.
But it turns out that this was basically like a marketing name given to the area by the people selling the mining claims, not by anybody who actually found any gold, right?
That's why it's just a claim.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a claim, right? It's not saying that there is gold there or that there are these, valuable gems and minerals and all that kind of stuff. And there's actually been a long history of like mining, people going out there, going to their claims that they had valid rights to and trying to find prospecting, trying to find things. There's, if you look on the map of Chuckwalla, there's prospects all over the place. But none of them ever turned into like a profitable mine, you know.
Hmm.
You'll still hear, you know, I sort of like think about it as like people being in the desert and like part of it is that kind of gold fever, California gold rush kind of stuff, and part of it is like being out in the desert sun and going a little loopy, you know. Yeah, exactly.
I see.
uh, you'll talk to. I'm not saying that's the case with these guys, and be careful there, but I have talked to people out in the desert who have these like stories about lost gold mines and the claim out there that got away. And somewhere there's a map that takes you to the thing, you know, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff is
search
out
for
there, right? You
treasure.
know, yeah, exactly. And there is treasure there, right? But it's ironwood trees, it's desert tortoises, it's sunrises on the Chuckwalla Bench, right? Not maybe some little flakes of gold.
They're treasures to be protected, not mine.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying that.
More context to the interest of other people that aren't just wanting to protect it, right?
Actually, I didn't know that people even thought that there was gold out there. So,
There's, I think because it's California, there's always that speculation as to the value that could be found within the land. And there's definitely, kind of like what Colin was saying about people selling mining claims. There was also, you go back a couple generations and you see people that would buy land unseen just because they saw an ad on the newspaper that said, oh, California land or land near LA and whatever, whatever. And they thought that, they were making an investment for the future. And that wasn't the case because these are not areas where you could actually build or have any type of available infrastructure to them. And also they're in wilderness areas. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's fascinating. Thank you for kind of explaining this whole issue a little bit more clearly for our listeners to understand and to continue to fight for these protections. I mean, Godspeed ahead, right?
Right.
How exactly is Cactus to Cloud stepping up along with other groups to continue to defend our public lands, defend specifically Chuckwalla National Monument?
Cindy and I and CactusToCloud Institute, along with tribes from the local area, the Torres Martinez tribe and Quetzon tribe and others, as well as other California and nationwide groups have done is to ask to be interveners in this lawsuit on behalf of Chuckwalla National Monument. So we want to be able to tell the whole story of Chuckwalla National Monument in a way that only we can, right? Only the tribes can tell their story, and only we can tell our story as people who grew up visiting Chuckwalla National Monument and who fought for 5 or more years to make sure that it became a national monument successfully earlier this year, right?
And what
I
does
mean,
that look like with continuing to defend it? You mentioned that your role in this is being a declarant. What does that mean?
Right. So we have this group of organizations and tribes coming together to intervene in the lawsuit. And each of those organizations is represented by a person called a declarant. So we're declaring our interest in Chuckwalla National Monument and our sort of unique stories that are part of why Chuckwalla should remain a national monument and why it's so important to the community. Actually, a lot of this stuff is kind of dry legal documents. I'm sure you can imagine, with citations and all this kind of stuff. But as declarants, we get to really tell more of a narrative and a story about why Chuckwalla is important to us. So, for myself, it's important to me because the first time I visited Chuckwalla National Monument, I was in middle school in like my science club, and we went to learn about geology and ecology of the desert there. And I remember that hike very well. It was very like impressionable on me, even though it was like, a long time ago now.
What
And
was
I even
impressionable?
remember,
What was
what's that?
impressionable about it for you?
What was impressionable? Well, if you've never been to Painted Canyon, it's like a perfect place to go as like a little boy who likes going on adventures in the desert because there are these narrow slot canyons where you're climbing up ladders and going kind of climbing over boulders and rocks and moving underneath rocks sometimes and kind of going across these canyon bottoms where there's always something interesting around the next turn, but you can't see, right? So it's very exciting for little kids and adults too, right?
It's like nature's adventure park.
Right. And I have this specific memory of it being a pretty warm, it's desert, right? So it was a warm day, especially by the time we kind of got to the halfway point or the loop, the end of the loop to come back home. And I sort of like fell down on the ground and uh, just wanted to relax. And I found this shady spot underneath an ironwood tree, one of these desert woodland species out in the desert. And one of the reasons that it was impressionable is because like every time I still do that hike, that ironwood tree is still there. I can still go and lie down in the same tree and like look up at the hike that I just did and like feel the same kind of satisfaction and the same kind of tired accomplishment of going on a hike in the desert.
Oh, that's like such a movie moment. I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's beautiful that that
Um,
tree is still there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing with the desert. A lot of these species, and plants in particular, are very long-lived. They can live for hundreds of years, thousands of years in some cases, and ironwood trees are a really great example of that. And of course, along with just the trees living for a long time, that means they've also got these really complex, large root systems that are storing carbon. I know Cindy talked about that in her episode, right? So
Right.
when you talk about the desert being a carbon sink, the roots of ironwood trees are part of that carbon sink, and the network through the soil, that's part of that carbon sink, and part of the reason why it needs to stay protected, right?
Yeah, it's very relatable, I think, this moment with this tree that you've gone back to time and time again in your life. I think everyone has a tree like that in their life or a place like that in their life, and it's worth protecting and it's worth defending. So I appreciate you guys not only designating or being a part of the designation of Chuckwalla National Monument, but now here we are needing to protect it yet again. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time along with all of your other groups that you've partnered with in the past and in the future. So we appreciate that. Before we started the conversation, you mentioned partnering with Earth Justice. We actually talk about Earth Justice in a couple episodes that has not been released yet, but they're a wonderful group and one that I think if you can donate to Earth Justice because they're the ones going to go in and make that fight in the courtroom, which is so important. Is there anything that you would like to say about Earth Justice and in that process so far?
Well, I think I would just sort of reiterate that and say, I'm not a lawyer. Nobody on the CactusToCloud team is a lawyer. We don't have any experience dealing with this kind of thing. I mean, for us, it was a huge decision to be this kind of tiny team of people and to kind of pick this big step out onto like a national legal battle. And there's kind of like three reasons that we feel like we were able to do that. And the reason we made that decision, one is that we really care about Chuckwalla and we really want to see it not just like for ourselves, but also we want everybody to be able to have that same kind of experience and find that ironwood tree or, go down that trail for those adventures or have that cultural touchstone for the indigenous people. That's one. Two is because the community support for Chuckwalla is so strong. And so we know that like our local people here in the Coachella Valley and in the desert really care about Chuckwalla and have this kind of bipartisan across boundaries support for Chuckwalla. There's nobody here locally who really is against it. So that's two. And then three is Earth Justice, like having an organization like Earth Justice, a law firm like Earth Justice, be able to support us for us that don't have this legal background or legal experience, and to have them be able to do all of the hard, complicated, dry legal work on our behalf is incredibly valuable and something that we're very appreciative of.
So it's you and these coalition groups, interest groups, Earth Justice, and together you guys are intervening to prevent the undoing. of
Basically, yeah, it's a little complicated.
Yeah, because there's two sets of interveners, if you will.
Right.
One would be the tribes, and then one would be the nonprofit organizations, and
Okay.
that's the group that Cactus to Clouds is part of.
So it's two different interest groups, but together forming a coalition.
So it's not necessarily a coalition. So the private interest groups are the people that are filing the lawsuit to get rid of the designation. And there's two groups, if you will, of people that are intervening to help defend Chuckwalla National Monument. One of those groups would be the local tribes, and then the other group would be Cactus to Clouds, along with some of our regional and national partners that are, trying to help defend Chuckwalla National Monument and are represented by Earth Justice.
So you have these two groups that are defending, and then Earth Justice is representing. Are they also representing the tribes as well?
No, so the tribes that are intervening in this lawsuit are being represented by Native American Rights Fund. Obviously, Earth Justice is like a super well-known group, and they're amazing attorneys doing really great work. And the other group that's also helping the Native American Rights Fund, they're also a really incredible, great group that are helping different tribes, I believe, across the nation on various different causes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and they both have extensive experience with these kinds of cases, dealing with national monuments and public lands protection.
Good. Well, I'm sure you guys have a long ride ahead of you with all of this. What can our audience do? What can the public do? I know that there's been some press releases about this that we can have in our show notes for everyone to reference. But as people that are heavily involved in this whole situation, and you have been for years, what is something that you would like to see from the public and how everyone can get involved and defend alongside you guys?
Yeah, I think, something that always helps, people at times misunderstand or undervalue their voice, but it has a lot of value and has a lot of impact. So if you can, please write, call your congressional representative, slide into their DMs, whatever it takes, but please reach out to them. Please let them know how much the public lands in your area, or if you live in the Coachella Valley, let them know how much you care about Chuckwalla National Monument. Getting in contact with your local representatives is always a really great step into making sure that they're representing the things that actually are important to you and that, your voice is being heard. So if you can, like I said, please call, write, try to get a hold of your representatives today. And encourage your friends and family also to do it. The more people reach out, the harder it is for them to ignore that this is an important issue for our community.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of us have kind of taken for granted that these public lands, national monuments, and national parks are here for us to enjoy. And unfortunately, we've seen, not just this lawsuit, but lots of other stuff going on with national monuments, public lands threatened to be sold off, with staffing at national parks and Department of Interior are all under threat. And the good news is that people have been speaking up about it, and they've been pretty successful in making sure that public lands aren't sold, and that so far the national monument protections are in place, and that we're at least avoiding some of the worst possible outcomes of the staffing cuts and that kind of stuff. There's still more to do there, right? So the more people are sharing why these places are important to them, and especially sharing them with your elected representatives, the more we're going to be able to protect these places forever.
Do you have any sort of recommendation in terms of maybe sites that have some of these templates built out that people can kind of easily go to and rely on for calling the reps and writing?
Yeah, and it could be, contact your local representative. I know it could be intimidating. A lot of people don't like to talk on the phone and whatnot. But, one thing I always tell people that like to avoid phone conversations is like, you can always wait until their office is closed and leave a message, and that way you don't have to talk to them.
That's hilarious, actually.
Yeah, and it could be something very simple. It could be like, hey, my name is blah, 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 blah. I live in whatever your address is, and I'm your constituent, and I'm calling because I am concerned about XYZ. And I want you, as my representative, to stand up for, a Chuckwalla National Monument, for public lands, for whatever the case may be, that's affecting your area.
another great thing you can do is make that same statement in a social media post and tag your representative. This all counts as things. It all goes into the algorithm, and it's all stuff that shows up on the representative's kind of summary of what people are talking to them about. So um, the more the better.
That's a great idea that we actually don't even do. So I will be doing that for this episode and for all of the posts that we do for you guys moving forward. I love that.
And I think just continuing to use your voice, like you both have said in today's update and both of your episodes as well, and sharing your story, that can be a social media post in itself. Why does the desert matter to you? And I'm always sharing that kind of stuff. And I love the Cactus to Cloud mission and that you guys continue to strive for those protections. And it really does come from those stories, like your story at Painted Canyon, Colin, I read in the press release, and that immediately, tugs at the heartstrings, and you just feel, you want to feel something, right, from these stories to take that inspired action. And I definitely feel something, right, when you share that story beneath the ironwood and just looking up in the shade, like that is impressionable for sure, especially at a young age. And that's what will change people's mind to care for sure.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming back on to the show and providing this update. Maybe we'll have you guys on again for a positive update that
well, I don't think it's not positive, right? Like we're still striving for something better. And
absolutely.
There's always definitely that optimistic view, where we know that this is something the community supports, that has bipartisan support. And so it's just about a matter of, all coming back again together to pretty much do the same thing we did already, but this time, defend the designation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it would be nice to end with this quote from Aldo Leopold that I feel like really summarizes what this fight is about. And that while it's unfortunate, Coral, like you said, we have to keep fighting. There is an optimistic outlook because we have always strived for protections and people have fought for generations for these places. So it's a part of our history. And so Aldo Leopold has this really good quote that I like, and I thought I would share. So it starts with, "We shall never achieve harmony with the land, any more than we shall achieve absolute justice or liberty for people. In these higher aspirations, the important thing is not to achieve, but to strive." And we will always continue to strive, just like nature does.
Nice. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Planet People. We are thrilled to have you as part of our community of wildlifers who care about protecting the planet for future generations to enjoy.
We hope that by listening, you feel inspired to connect with nature and become a steward of the planet by getting involved and taking action with your local community conservation organizations. Until next time, stay positive, Planet People.
This episode was produced by Natalie Jean Sybil, Coral Carson, and Hugh Carr. Directed and edited by Coral Carson. Theme song by Hugh Carr under the artist name Flama. Thank you, team.